Let me thank all of you for your testimonies. We appreciate very much the input and your expertise. We'll start with our questions now, and I'm going to ask one for all the witnesses. What we've just heard in reliability being that it should be the driving force, and the only way you know that is when you lose power and why it wasn't prevented. So with that being said, we have NERC, we have FERC, we have EPA. EPA seems to trump everything with policy if they're going a different direction, and it looks like there's not much input. Do you all believe or don't believe it's necessary that NERC and FERC should have input in far as reliability when EPA is making these policy changes? Ms. Tudor.
Absolutely.
Ms. Lott.
I think that in all these processes, it's critical to keep what you highlighted in the beginning in mind: reliable and affordable electricity. And anything that affects the grid, we should understand the impacts of it.
But I'm saying if they're not listening to them, if NERC and FERC, they're doing their job, but there's no teeth to it whatsoever. Give you an example of what we're talking about. We have been working on bills here, directing the NERC to comment on EPA regulations, direct them to comment on your regulations. EPA must address NERC's comments before it issues a final rule. And then FERC can issue temporary waivers to regulations if needed for reliability. So somehow you have to have, reliability is going to be the first and foremost for people's lives, protect their lives, really livelihoods and lives. And that's what we're asking. If something is needed in the that you all believe, seeing it from your standpoint, in legislation that might be helpful to give us more direction of reliability, not just changes that are desired.
Yeah, Senator Manchin, I can provide my perspective. I think absolutely. I think actually Senator Barrasso is thinking through the SPUR Act, and I think this concept of reliability impact statements to inform policy before it is made, I think is a great idea. I think actually we can go further, and I can talk about that later, but I think that is needed.
I think I know how you feel, Mr. Robb.
Well, we do reflect the impact of EPA policy.
How frustrating is it to you, being the head of NERC, knowing that you're giving basically on the facts, you're not picking winners or losers, you're not getting involved in environmental climates and in the fight that goes on, what side are you on, basically just dealing with the facts of how you're supposed to deliver the power, and no one pays attention?
It's frustrating.
I would think so. Okay, here. And Mr. Masham, how's PJM adjusting to the market rules to ensure that you have dispatchable power that's needed to run your reliable grid?
Yeah, great question, Senator Manchin. So we're taking a lot of actions right now. I think before I get into those actions, I just want to note the markets have worked. They actually have delivered reliability. They've delivered the dispatchable generation we need for 20 years. And I think they'll continue to work. But what's different is there's this massive policy pressure. And I'm not sure that the markets or actually any—
Explain that massive policy pressure. Pressure to what? Bring on more power, or just, I mean, here, bring on renewable. We're all for all the above.
Yeah, and
wind, solar, all of this.
Yeah, it's really pressure for generators that are dispatchable to retire. And the retirement dates are not tied to demonstration that the replacement capacity is here, right?
Let me ask this question. If you shut down a coal-fired plant before it's timed out and it can still produce power 24/7, you're shutting it down because of policy pressures. Does the ratepayer still pay since it's been based in for a longer period of time to run?
It depends on the rate regime. So part of PJM is restructured, in which case the investors take that risk. In the fully regulated, integrated parts of the market, the ratepayers take that risk.
And
but so we're doing a lot to tweak our markets, to change our markets, to make sure we're recognizing the attributes that we need for a reliable grid, whether it's resource accreditation or how we run our auctions or how we actually penalize people who don't perform.
Very quickly, I think, Ms. Tudor, you made a comment that you don't think that we can meet it in time as far as you're saying all this in the queue, all this new energy coming on, waiting to get connected, correct? What happens if we don't build new transmission lines to carry this and bring it into the queue? Does it replace basically? And if it's not, if we don't have storage and we can't store it, and basically it has to be either used or lost, what does it do to reliability?
I believe there's a tipping point that is going to occur in 2028 because all the plants that are announced to close in 2028, most of these coal plants, are tied to specific regulations in the EPA, so they're going to close. So you've got between now and 2028 to come up with solutions, sir. Transmission is a solution. Keeping what we have past 2028 to maybe 2035 gives us a chance to actually see these technologies developed. The first SMR, small modular reactor, is scheduled to come on in 2029. That's the first one. And no one wants to be number one in new technologies. So my concern is we've got a gap period here that we've got this push for all these new renewables, and we have this push to shut down plants that work, and there's nothing there in the middle to save us. And I fear we are going to have blackouts, and I'm afraid we're going to see significant number of lives lost.